أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم ذلك الدين القيم فلا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Salawat Biji Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you heard the announcement that moon was sighted, and so this marks the beginning of the new year, 1435 Muharram al-Haram. And inshallah, as we've had the opportunity in the past years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us again with the opportunity to commemorate the silsila of this majalis, or the commemoration of these majalis, paying respect to our beloved Imam and his companions in the tragedy that took place over 1374 years ago, which is still alive in the hearts of every individual who is attached with this house, who's attached with this door. And we see that it is indeed a reality when Rasulullah had himself predicted that inna liqatl al-Husayn hararatan fi qulub al-mu'minin la tabrudu abada. That the saying of Rasulullah stands still true, that inna liqatl al-Husayn, indeed with the martyrdom of Hussein, or due to the martyrdom of Hussein, there's this hararat, there's this heat, that is this fire in the qulub and the hearts of mu'mineen, la tabrudu abadan, which will never be extinguished, which will never be cooled off. It will remain heated and it will remain in that state forever. And so we see that as the reality that every single year we get together and we commemorate. And with time we understand that it is actually this commemoration that is keeping us alive, or this commemoration that is keeping us together. By no means can we go ahead and say that we are the ones keeping this commemoration alive. And for today, just the tamheed, a preface, a prelude to the majalis, inshallah, that will be beginning from the 1st of Muharram, inshallah, tomorrow. I want to take this opportunity to walk you into the topic that I wanted to discuss for the next week and a half. Tonight, I recited this ayah from Surah Tawbah, verse number 36, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Inna iddat ash-shuhur indallahi 12 shahran. That indeed, the number of months with Allah is 12 months. Arba'atun hurum, in which there are 4 of them that are haram. Haram in the sense that they are considered to be muhtaram. What are those 4 months? 3 are in a row. Dhiqada, month number 11. Dhil Hijjah, month number 12. Muharram, the first month. And Rajab. These are the 4 months that are considered to be the months that are muhtaram, that are considered to be haram. And that's why you always hear Muharramul Haram. Why these 4 months, as counted in this ayat of Quran, considered to be among the 4 muhtaram and the respected and haram months? One of the reasons that have been mentioned by the Mufassirin is that because these are the months when people perform the pilgrimage. They start going to the pilgrimage from the month of Ziqada. They perform the pilgrimage during the month of Dhul Hijjah. And by the time Muharram begins, people are returning back home. In order to keep the safety and the security of these individuals intact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made these 3 months in a row to be muhtaram. Whereas there's no qital in this month, there's no war in this month, there's no jihad in this month. And unfortunately, if you are under attack, then obviously you have to reply. Therefore, if it is something of that case, the indemnity or the blood money has been doubled, especially in these months, so that people will be able to learn and understand and be able to respect each other, especially when it comes to these 3 months. This is, with this reality existing, understanding that how from the very beginning, and this is a verse of Quran, that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made these months to be muhtaram for this particular reason, that the blood of mu'mineen is respected. Yet we still see a tragedy like the one that took place in Karbala, involving the household of Rasulullah, is taking place in the most barbaric manner, where people are being martyred and butchered and killed in the same month which is considered to be the month of Muharram al-Haram. What has happened to these mu'mineen, what has happened to these rather Muslimeen, that only 50 years after the wafat of Rasulullah, that we see that they are attacking the household of Rasulullah. So without going into the details of what inshallah will be coming up later on, I will go directly as to why is it that we commemorate this every single year. Why is it that we are remembering Imam Hussein every single year? There are so many other personalities in the history, we don't commemorate them the way we commemorate the remembrance of Imam Hussein ﷺ, alongside with the companions that were with him, because of the significance that is attached. And inshallah I will try to highlight that in the next 25 to 30 minutes that I have. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. First and foremost is the hadith that I recited. Inna liqatl al-Husayn hararatan. I want everyone to, especially the younger ones, to memorize this hadith if you could. It's very simple, it's very short, it's very small. It says, Inna liqatl al-Husayn hararatan fi qulub al-mu'mineen. Indeed, in the martyrdom of Hussein, there's heat, there's this energy, there's this fire which exists in the hearts of mu'mineen. La tabrudu abadan. It will never be extinguished, it will never cool down. That is one reason why we keep on commemorating this sorrow, this sad event, for almost 1300 and 1400 years has it passed. Secondly, there's a reason behind the commemoration as well. I'll read one ayat of Quran and I will recite one hadith from Rasulullah to back up my point that I'm trying to make over here. Ayat of Quran says in Surah Dhariyat, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the jinns nor the mankind except that they may worship me. So we understand the reason behind the khilqat and the creation of mankind is what? Is to perform the worship of Allah. Is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now there are various different forms of worships. One form of worship is that you perform 5 times a day is the salat, which is wajib-e-aini, that we all have to perform by ourselves. No one else can do it on our behalf as long as we are alive. That is why it is considered to be wajib-e-aini. Then there are other types of wajibat as well, but among the obligations that we have, one of them is salat. Then we have the fasting that we do in the month of Ramadan. Then we have all the other wajibat that are considered to be the ibadat and obligation. They go under the category of ibadat. But then the limitation of ibadat is not only to these things which we read in Furu'edin. Rather, this ibadat section extends beyond these Furu'edin. And then taking care of your family members, respecting your elders, respecting your parents, taking care of your neighbors. All of these are considered to be ibadat, worship. Anything that has the color and the flavor of deen and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it, considered to be ibadat. You wake up in the morning, you look at your parents' face, your mother's or your father's face, with respect and with generosity, with compassion and mercy. Allah says this is considered to be an ibadat. Allahu Akbar. That is considered to be an ibadat, a worship in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we see that the ibadat are not only limited to those 10 things that we learn in Furu'edin. Rather, it is beyond that. Among the things that is considered to be ibadat is to earn halal for your family. When you go out and you earn halal and you earn which is permissible by the Shariat, that is itself is an ibadat as well. When you're working hard to put food in front of your family, that is considered to be ibadat. When you are learning and studying earnestly with respect to the teachers and everyone else, that is also considered to be ibadat. In fact, you can turn every single thing, every single act of yours into ibadat if you wanted to, because you know the formula now. So ibadat is beyond those 10 things that we learn in Furu'id-Din. Among the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the only purpose of your creation is what? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Those who consider ibadat to be only namaz, they will be limiting the meaning of this ayat of Quran, that Allah created us only to perform namaz. That is not the case. If you understand the boundaries of this ibadat, you will understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created mankind. And not just mankind, as well as the jinns are also included in the same ayat as well. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So we understand over here the purpose of the creation of mankind and jinns is what? To perform the ibadat. Now let's refer towards the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, in which he says, زَيِّنُوا مَجَالِسَكُمْ بِذِكْرِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib. Embellish your gatherings with the dhikr of Ali ibn Abi Talib. If Prophet has said this much of this hadith, first of all, this hadith is authentic and is believed muwaffaq between all of the schools. He says, زَيِّنُوا مَجَالِسَكُمْ بِذِكْرِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib. Embellish your gatherings with the dhikr of Ali ibn Abi Talib. If Prophet had said that much, we would have taken this hadith wholeheartedly, but Prophet gave reasons behind it. Now attach it and look at it, the ayat that I recited in front of you, with this hadith that Prophet is saying. And that is the beauty of religion, that when Prophet says something, it is always in accordance with the ayat of Quran. You will see how this hadith correlates with that ayat of Quran that I just recited in front of you. He says, زَيِّنُوا مَجَالِسَكُمْ بِذِكْرِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib. Embellish your gatherings with the zikr and the remembrance of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? فَإِنَّ ذِكْرَهُ ذِكْرِي. Because when you remember Ali, you remember me. وَذِكْرِي ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ. And when you remember me, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ ibadat. And when you remember Allah, that itself is considered to be ibadat. So in other words, when you remember Ali, you are actually performing the ibadat. Now you understand the reason behind the creation is to go and perform only ibadat, doing the zikr of Ali ibn Abi Talib and including the family of Ali ibn Abi Talib is actually considered to be ibadat. And that's why when we gather on this Farsh Azam, what are we gathering here over here for? We're gathering over here to perform this unique ibadat that only we have received by being attached to the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. So the purpose of the creation of mankind and jinns is to do ibadat. Zikr Ali and Ali Ali is also considered to be ibadat. And therefore, what we are doing over here, and we are repeating every single year, is actually a concept of ibadat itself. But there's one thing that I want to pose a question in front of you today. And then you can take this question home, and then we can discuss it later on. One thing that we do need to work on is that when we consider this to be an institution, Ashura is an institution. These majalis and gatherings are institutions. Muharram itself is an institution. Why? You're gathered over here, sitting and listening to me. Then someone else will come and speak and you will listen to them. We consider this to be an institution, the same way you have attended other institutions. The difference is this is a religious institution, you have attended secular institutions. When you attend a secular institution, what happens over there? A child goes through his stages, goes through kindergarten, comes through first grade, second grade, elementary school, middle school, high school. You pass through all of those things, then you enter into college. Once you graduate, then you pursue even further studies, postgraduate and whatnot. But there's always a progress in what you're doing. Nobody ever says that I'm learning the same thing that I learned in the previous grade. It might be similar, but it's definitely more advanced than last year. And the only time you're made to repeat something is when you have flunked the class, is when you have failed. And nobody comes around and says, oh, I'm repeating what I had done last year. That means, in other words, you're saying you were in 10th grade, you were sophomore, and now you're doing and repeating the year again because you failed. It's not a matter of pride or honor by anyone to go ahead and say such a thing. So there's always this progress every single year when we are going through our secular institution. Same progress should exist in our religious institutions as well. When we are commemorating, when we are doing this commemoration every single year, when we are repeating the dhikr of Hussein and the companions of Hussein, as far as the tragedy of Karbala is concerned, there should always be new elements to our studies and our discussion every single year. That when we come over here, it should not be the case that I've heard these things many times before, or this is being repeated. I only come here because my parents forced me to come over here. No, I want to come here because I want to learn something new as far as the tragedy of Karbala is concerned. Yeah, that emotional aspect will remain with me. But what am I learning over here in the first 40 minutes before that Masa'ib begins? Because you cannot create new Masa'ib. Masa'ib will remain the same. But what you can deliver or what you can understand or learn is the first part of the majlis, to deliver something so that it is some sort of upbringing and some sort of growth and sort of something new as far as the institution is concerned, that it is not something which you have already learned last year. Because if you had learned it last year, why am I repeating it in front of you? And if I'm repeating in front of you because you did not pay attention last year, so that should not be the case. We should keep this to be the zikr of Ahlul Bayt because it is considered to be ibadat. That is the sole purpose of the creation of mankind and jinns. And also learn a new thing as far as the religion of Islam is concerned. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So as we began today, and inshallah, as I said, we will go into the details of it tomorrow, but just an overview of what inshallah you will be listening or hearing if you keep coming every single day, and I hope that you do keep coming every single day. The topic that I have chosen for the next 12 nights, a week and a half, is the examples and the messages from Ashura. Messages from Ashura. Lessons from Ashura. And I will explain as to what do I mean by the lessons from Ashura. We see that first of all, we're going to go ahead and delve into what does a message mean? What is the mafhum and the implied meaning of the word message and lesson? We'll probably get a chance to discuss that tonight. And secondly, we will divide our discussion into 5 categories. First category, inshallah, we will be discussing is the lessons on belief, our aqaid, that we derive from the messages from Ashura. Don't think that this event of Ashura took place. Imam went into this war, went into this battlefield, he died, 72 other members of his family died or companions died, and that was it. This institution is filled with messages from the beliefs and the aqaid of Shia. So inshallah we will be discussing the beliefs and the aqaid that we learn from the lessons from Ashura. Aqaid from the concept of Tawheed in our action, Tawheed in our belief. We will be discussing the concepts such as the concept of Qayamat, how Imam is discussing Qayamat and Ma'ad while he's in Karbala. We will also discuss the concept of Shafa'at that Imam emphasized on so much while he's in the land of Karbala. We will talk about also the concept of Imamat, which Imam keeps on reminding individuals. These all have to do with what? Your aqaid. You've all learned these sort of things in the beliefs when you're studying, yet we will look at it from the perspective of how Imam Hussein, when he was giving the messages from Ashura, how those things and those messages could be derived. That will be the first stage of our discussion. Second stage of our discussion, inshallah, will revolve around the lessons on ethics and morals from Ashura. Don't think that this event that took place 1400 years ago was only a war between 2 families, Banu Hashim and Banu Umayyah. No. Imam, every single step of the way, is preaching and teaching and nurturing the individuals that Imam is coming across. Inshallah, we will have the Masayib of Hur in the nights to come, and I will show you and I will try to explain as to how Imam did the nurturing within a few days of this individual whom we have learned to know as Hur. Imam does upbringing, tarbiyat, from the very second day of Muharram when Imam arrives into Karbala until the 10th day. That has an impact on Hur, that Hur walks from one camp to the camp of Imam Hussein. If it's nothing but the akhlaq that Imam ﷺ is portraying and explaining to these individuals. We will talk about under the lessons in ethics and morals, the concept of freedom that Imam ﷺ explains and elaborates for us. We will talk about the concept of sacrifice, because we have learned that there is a great deal of sacrifice that is attached as far as the event of Karbala is concerned. Yes, sacrificing your family, sacrificing your wealth, sacrificing your own soul for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is all going down under the category of the ethics and the morals from the events of Ashura. Honoring mankind, tawakkul and reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, jihad and struggling with your soul, bravery and valor, patience and steadfastness, modesty and hijab, as well as loyalty that is attached. All of these, inshallah, we will discuss under the bayam of Ashura, the messages of Ashura, as far as the morals and the ethical values are concerned. Thirdly, we will discuss the lessons about the reality of life. Because when Imam embarks on this journey, this is about real life. This is not something which you see in a movie. This is not something that you have heard or hearsay. This is not something which is a fairy tale or anything. No, this is about real life. Events that took place are real. If it was not real, you and I would not be sitting here every single year commemorating in this fashion. And not just you and I, millions of people around the globe who've been commemorating this event wholeheartedly, with such passion that tells you how true this incident and event was. And so it is a reality. And we will be discussing the mafhum and the implied meaning of life. We will discuss as to how life is a test. Dead or alive nations. Well, are we a dead nation? Are we an alive nation? Victory or defeat? Shahadat. And then so on and so forth. Fourthly, we will be discussing among the lessons from Ashura, the mystical lessons learned from Ashura. Bayam-hai irfani. As far as the irfan is concerned, how Imam elevates these individuals who are coming along with Imam Hussein to the level that these people are thinking, and the same concept should be applied to those who are watching and following these commands of Imam ﷺ. First of all, you will learn and you will see the love of God that exists. If there's any irfan in there, love of God. Love of God. You all say that we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's a different level of love that we have for God, and there was a different level of love that Imam Hussein and his companions had for God. So love of God will be discussed, inshallah. Calamity and those who are afflicted by this calamity, inshallah, we'll discuss in the pagham or the messages which are related to irfan. We will also discuss the sacrifice in the way of Allah. We will discuss the rida and taslim, contentment and submission in front of the commands and the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fawzun azim, the victory, the great victory it is. We will discuss that as well. And then rising for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of us have the gut to stand up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And lastly, the historical lessons that we can derive from Ashura. Yes, there's a lot of history behind this. History, not just the plain history that we have learned for so many years, but also relating this history, because history of Islam or history of Muslimin. Roots of Ashura, where do you connect these roots of Ashura? It connects all the way to Saqifa, Banu Sa'ada that took place, how we will be inshallah establishing a connection between the two. Itmam Hujjat by Imam, which is the ultimatum that Imam gave and every companion gave on their way, and honoring the vicious which is happening today and dishonoring the kind which is happening today. What do I mean by that? Today, The name Yazid was something which was frowned upon, that you hear the name, people will turn around and they will make a face. Abus, in other words, they would be frowned upon when you would hear the word. It was something which was hated. But over the years, people start honoring the vicious. And over the years, people start dishonoring those who were the righteous ones. The same sentence you will hear, Imam Hussein, people will say radiyallahu anhu, and people will say Yazid, na'udhu billah. They will also say radiyallahu anhu with him. How much hypocrite can you be, putting the names of Hussein and Yazid in the same sentence and saying that both Allah may be pleased with them? This is where we see that honoring the vicious is something which is a phenomena that developed in the recent past. It did not exist for all these years. People did not even consider the name of Yazid for their children. Today, it is all changing back. So inshallah, we'll focus on that as well. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. Today, as I said, inshallah, we'll talk about what does the word message mean. Because we're talking about the messages from Ashura. So today, inshallah, in the next 10 minutes that I have, we want to look at what is the mafhum and the meaning of the word message. What is a message? Message is something that you plan to give to those who are your audiences. So there's a message that I came with today. And that message I want to give you today. Primarily, this message that I'm trying to deliver today is in words, in talk. Because I've been talking ever since I've been on this member, I've been talking. So one method of conveying this message that I have delivered, that I have brought for you, is by speaking to you. But does that really is the only way of delivering a message? No. Sometimes your actions also deliver a message. Isn't that right? Sometimes you talk and you say things and you deliver a message. Sometimes you do certain things and that also delivers a message. We see that there's so many messages in the event of Karbala. Some of which you will not even find in the sayings of Imam Hussein. So Imam never said this. Imam never said go ahead and sacrifice your family. Imam never said this, that you have to protect the deen, so you go ahead and do this and you go ahead and do this. Imam never said if you're weak and you know that the opposition is strong, you will not stand any chance to go ahead and start war with those individuals. No. You will not hear any of those sayings by Imam Hussein. But merely by the performance of these things, we understand that Imam was giving us this message. So at one point, I say a few things to deliver a message. At points, I do different things to go ahead and deliver a message. What kind of message is it? Sometimes an incident takes place. Individuals who were involved in the incident, they might not have planned to give out any message. But just the mere fact that we are talking about that incident, we can derive and deduce some messages out of that incident. So you see that there are different ways and methods of looking at the message. How do you get this message? Sometimes this message is in the form of words. Sometimes this message is in the form of action. Sometimes this message is coming from an individual. Sometimes this message is coming from a group of people. It could be in any shape or any form. Sometimes this message could be apparent, and sometimes this message could be hidden as well. So we see when you do nahi anil munkar, amr bil maruf and nahi anil munkar, right? When you do nahi anil munkar, one of the conditions for the nahi anil munkar, one of the steps of nahi anil munkar is that the initial stage is that you do not go ahead and say it to this individual that what you're doing is wrong. So for example, God forbid, if you saw one of your friends do something which is wrong, now it is an obligation upon you to go ahead and correct him. It's not like, oh, someone else will do it. No. It is your obligation to go ahead and correct that individual. But you should also have proper knowledge as to what you are correcting. You have that knowledge as well. You know that yourself or not. Sometimes, a lot of time, what happens is that we try to correct other people when they're doing something wrong. Well, we lack the knowledge of that incident as well. We don't know about it, yet we go ahead and start correcting other individuals. No, you should have proper knowledge of that as well. But anyways, you see someone doing something wrong. For example, someone is not making wudu correctly. What do? Right away, without any delay, you go ahead and correct them. You don't want them to be making wrong wudu, because if they make wrong wudu, their namaz is in jeopardy as well. But that's a small example. For example, God forbid, if someone was doing something haram, what is your duty? To go ahead and inform that individual. This is where nahi anil munkar, forbidding what is evil, becomes wajib upon you. But there are steps and there are manners for nahi anil munkar. First step is not to go up to this individual and say, oh, I saw you do that, that is wrong. No, there are manners for that as well. And the first stage, show it through your heart. What do I mean? You show a cold shoulder, for example. This individual wants to talk to you, is a friend of yours, you turn around. You show them that you're disgusted through your heart, through your behavior. That will right away attract them towards you. That will right away give them a sense that there's something that they have done is not correct. They will come running towards you asking, what have I done, brother? Have I done a mistake? Have I made a mistake? If I have, can you please correct me and point that out? That is the first stage of it. You're delivering a message. Remember? How did you deliver the message? By ignoring this individual. Sometimes when we ignore, we deliver a message. So message does not always have to be delivered by the tongue. So when nahi anil munkar is concerned, the first step of nahi anil munkar is what? That you show it through your heart without even saying it. But then in some certain individuals, they don't understand even by that, then you gotta spell it out to them. Brother, what you did was wrong, and so on and so forth. Salawat Dij Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Therefore, when we talk about the messages from Ashura, it isn't limited to the sayings of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. Rather, it is beyond the sayings of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. For example, Imam in one of his sayings said, "In lam yakun lakum dinun wa kuntum la takhafun al-ma'ad fakunu ahraran." This is a message that Imam gave when Imam alayhi salatu wasalam was facing the army. And the army which was trying to run into the tents of these ladies which will be made captives later on. Imam said, if you do not have any deen, and if you do not fear the hereafter or the ma'ad or qayamat, at least be free in this world of yours. Remember that you are Arabs. Remember the pride of Arabs. At least remember what your forefathers used to do as far as the respect was concerned. Respect these ladies while still I'm alive. So this was a message that Imam gave, open message that Imam ﷺ is giving. At another place, Imam ﷺ says that in an-nasu abidud dunya, that people are servants of this dunya. And then it says, وَالدِّينُ لَائِقٌ عَلَى أَنْصَلَتِهِمْ. And deen is only utterance of their tongue. Just something which just comes out of their tongue. They're not saying it wholeheartedly. It says at the end, فَإِذَا مُحِّسُوا بِالْبَلَاءِ قَلَّ الدَّيَّانُونَ. A lot of people will come up to you and say, well, yes, we are going to go ahead and support you. But Imam says, فَإِذَا مُحِّسُوا يَمَحِّسُوا بِالْبَلَاءِ. When there's some sort of calamity that falls upon these individuals, قَلَّ الدَّيَّانُونَ. There are very few you will find to be righteous. There are very few that you will find to be religious. Only when there's no bala, there's no calamity, that these individuals are for you. But as soon as there's some sort of calamity, you will see the number will be decreasing over here. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into the concept of that I wanted to talk about, what is a message and how there are different messages that are attached in this. But we want to talk about very briefly towards the end, as I link my talk to the Masaib. I'm coming towards the end. When we are commemorating this event, and as we do this every single year, the important thing to understand is not so much focus upon how the incident of Karbala took place, but rather our focus should be as to why the incident of Karbala took place. Because the how part of the incident of Karbala is only the graphic description of how, the spears were thrown towards imams, how the arrow was thrown towards the little ones, how the thirst came about, how the tents were attacked, how they were burned, and whatnot. This is the how part of it, which is very important, emotional and sentimental, to in order for us to keep this thing attached with ourselves. We need to talk about that part as well. But we need to focus more on the why part of it, as to why such an incident took place. One of the Maraji of our time actually said that if the shurafa and the leaders of the communities, the heads of the communities, if those individuals paid attention and took care of the religion correctly, there will not be any needs of Hussein ibn Ali or the Karbala to take place again. But because the heads of the communities and the leaders of the communities do not understand it correctly, or they fail to understand it, or they understand it and they have conflicts about the things, there's always Hussein ibn Ali happening, and there's always Karbala that is taking place. And even today we see the followers of Hussein ibn Ali are persecuted in the same exact fashion. We always keep on seeing the history repeating itself, as many Karbalas have taken place after that initial Karbala that took place. I want to take you to how Imams used to commemorate the incident. In the times of our 8th Imam, in the times of our 6th and 5th Imam, there were poets. These poets would be invited by our Masumeen. Among them was a person by the name Kumayt Asadi. Among them was a person by the name Di'bal Khuzai. These were the individuals that Imams would invite. Say, oh Debo, recite something about the tragedy of Karbala. And this is where Di'bal would start reciting the poetry. And as he would be reciting the poetry, Imam would start weeping. Imam would start crying. As Imam was crying, it reached to the extent that people had to reach up to Di'bal and say, oh Di'bal, stop and don't recite anymore, because Imam cannot handle it anymore. If you kept on reciting, Imam will not be able to understand. He will not be able to control himself. We see that these incidents took place as even Di'bal was reciting. Imam said to Di'bal, Imam said to Kumayt, oh, the one who is our supporter, not only through his tongue, but also through his hands. We see that the whole incident of Karbala, as it is beginning, we hear in the hadith of our 8th Imam. Very quickly, I want to recite one sentence from this hadith. That hadith which Imam narrates to a person by the name Rayyan ibn Shabib. Ibn Shabib, and Imam is addressing him, oh Ibn Shabib, oh son of Shabib. How does he say? He said, in kunta baqiyan li shay'in. Oh Shabib, if you ever wanted to weep for something, if you ever wanted to cry for something, fabki lil Hussein, then cry and weep for Hussein. Imam did not stop there. Imam continued. He said, فَإِنَّهُ ذُبِهَا كَمَا يَذْبَهُ الْكَبْشُ. Because why do you want to cry for Hussein? Because he was slaughtered the way goats and the sheep are slaughtered. And he said, وَقُتِلَ مَعَهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ ثَمَانِيَةَ عَشَرَ رَجُلًا. And along with Imam Hussein, 18 of his companions will also martyred. مَا لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ شَبِيهٌ. There was no one that could be compared to those 18 individuals. The reason that he's mentioning that weep for Hussein if you want to. Why? He was martyred. He was slaughtered the way goats and the sheep are slaughtered. Let us remember this, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to commemorate and to be able to remember the remembrance of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Akhir dawana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.